You're listening to Creating a Universe, a Love Anarchy podcast hosted by William J. Rogers. On this show, we follow the journey of creatives, artists, and entrepreneurs who are making a name for themselves in the ever-evolving landscape of today's industry, featuring an insight into both Love Anarchy and the Lovaniverse music universe, as well as the individual projects and stories of each of our guests, from the music industry and beyond. So whether you're a budding creative or simply interested in what goes on behind the scenes, this is the podcast for you. Hello and welcome to Creating a Universe. I'm your host, William J. Rogers, and today I'm here with my good friend, Electro pop singer-songwriter, Arron Sands. How you doing, man?
Hello.
Cool. Good to have you on the show, man.
Thank you for having me.
So Arron's a friend of mine. We've known each other for quite a bit of time. We used to gig together back in the day as well, with our bands. And so Arron's got a lot going on. You've been pretty busy. I was wondering, would you be able to give our listeners kind of a little bit of a overview and introduction to who you are and what you're doing?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Arron Sands, as Will has just nicely introduced. I'm just going to come right out and say it. I've got my debut album that I've been working on for the past couple of years that is ready to be released. So I'm kind of really hyped. You'll see me grinning like an idiot quite a lot of the time. It's all go. I am just really into music in every which way. I love rock, but I love pop, and particularly, like you mentioned, like the electro thing. So as you can see here, I'm in my setup, and I just like to create demos, and I started doing my own kind of smaller productions. But the album is going to be the album that's coming out is going to be or has been produced by a professional producer, Paul Tipler, who's worked with some amazing acts. One of my favorite of which is Julian Cope. So I'm quite excited about that. And the amazing thing is my wife has done the artwork because she's a graphic illustrator and designer and all that kind of stuff. And so that's another aspect of my life, is a lot of the art and things like that you see is designed by her. So I'm quite nervous about like bragging about myself, because I'm just like, woo, the album's coming out, I do this, I do that, and I get a little bit shy, which is quite strange considering my background and that kind of thing.
For sure. So it's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, so it's really quite a collaboration in a way between you and Polina, right? Your wife. And you kind of are the singer-songwriter, writing the music and producing it, and as you say, for this album, producing with Paul. And then Polina sort of contributes the whole visual aspect to it. That's all the artwork and stuff that she does, the single covers or the album art. As well as the music videos and stuff that you guys do.
Yeah, we work quite closely when it comes to the music videos and things, because I find I have, like with the music that I write, I find I have not a bit of a vision. Again, I'm trying to undersell myself. Apologies. I basically have a vision, and you say about I write the music and put it together, and I've worked with the producer, but I think it ties in with my background. I do have that thing where you may have seen Little Britain, where it's like, write the theme tune, sing the theme tune. I do kind of have that within me, and I don't want to neg on it. I just feel like everything I do, I want it to have like a meaning and a purpose. So for me, the songs have like deeper meanings. It's not just like love me do, it's literally like, I want the songs to be speaking to people. And they're also really cathartic for me, because I feel like I'm quite an emotive person. highly empathetic and often very frustrated with the way of the world. So I find this really, me making music really helps me balance that out. And then performing it is obviously, that's my kick, really. That's my vice, like a little adrenaline junkie for that.
Yeah, fantastic. So in regards to your performances, that's a setup of you solo on the stage, right? You got your own kind of singer-songwriter setup that has evolved somewhat over time.
Yeah, so I even just started with like an acoustic, and when I first decided that I was going to kind of commit to this particular journey of being solo and working closely with Polina, my wife, I didn't actually have, or I didn't think the electric guitar I had was viable. And I thought, well, that's just going to be noisy and frustrating. And some of the songs I had, it was just smoother on an acoustic. But even there, like I've never, until quite recently, like doing this album, I'd never really developed my guitar playing past open chords and basic bar chords. So I even find that now I'm starting to like evolve a bit more as a guitar player, and now I've got like a fancier guitar, and I work with obviously effect pedals, but I'm not deliberately trying to like go all out with reverbs and delays and stuff like that. But yeah, I feel like, I mean, you'll know what this is like, but as a really great guitar player yourself, I feel like there's like an addiction to, oh man, I'd like to try out a delay pedal for this or that. So
toys,
I'm trying toys.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to go down the rabbit hole and kind of keep it consistent with my songwriting. I just feel like I'm not really an acoustic player. So I play some of my tracks with a backing track that have the electronic elements on it, and some are suitable without. And I feel like live, that kind of brings a nice dynamic. It helps with the this idea of light and shade and sending people on a journey when you play live. I actually I actually played a gig the other day, and it went well. It was at the Hope and Anchor, and I felt like it just adds more for the listener to add those electronic elements and then strip it back. And even though it's an electric guitar, like the couple of tracks I do play without, they work with that. So it makes people's ears prick up, and they don't get exhausted from just being hammered with kind of like intense sounds the whole way through.
For sure. And I mean, your show as well, because it's just you on the stage, you're quite kind of chatty too, and you tell the stories behind your songs and stuff, and that and interact with the crowd. So
having been a frontman, that's been possibly the hardest thing, because suddenly having a guitar in my hands that I wouldn't necessarily say I felt comfortable with it until recently. It was almost like I'm hiding behind it, but needs must, and if you're a natural performer, or you're expressive, you do whatever you can. I think there was a great quote with John Lennon saying, "You give me a tuba and I'll play you something," and I think I'm like that. It might be basic to some musicians, but for me, it's all about expression, really.
Okay, that's fantastic. So you mentioned a couple of times about your background and as well being a frontman. So let's take it back a little bit to the beginning, and where would you say your musical journey began?
It was I would say I want to start at the very beginning, right? So I was about 8 years old, and it was one of those nylon string guitars, and it got thrust into my hands, I think, because my dad could see that I was like really into some of these records that he had, and quite notably, Prince, who was a sensational guitar player. And I think I was just fascinated with the music that I was hearing, and he thought, okay, so this kid's like really keen, and he thrust this guitar into my hands. And I was 8, and I think I'd had like a couple of lessons at school, and we were literally playing What Shall We Do with the Drunken Sailor, and I was so bored of it. And when I got home, I'm like playing the record. I think it was like a Rolling Stones track, like Give Me Shelter or something like that, and I'm just there on the guitar, like, you're 8 years old and you have no idea. And I was there just saying to myself, I don't sound like Keith Richards, I suck, and like screw that. And then I was like, okay, well, maybe I'm a keyboard player, or maybe I'm a pianist or something. And so I get that shoved in front of me, and I'm just playing Three Blind Mice. And I think this is something that's always been with me, is like, I have such an ambition, and I don't mean ambition to be like notorious or anything like that. I just mean like I have such a drive within me that I want to expel and share this energy that I have, that it took a long time to kind of realize that, man, you have to put the blocks in place. You know, you're climbing a mountain, but I'd always just look at this mountain and be like, rah, get me to the top, you know? But anyway, that was like the start of it. And then when I was 20 or 19, I moved to Bournemouth to actually study film and animation production, because I've always been interested in performing. So at school, I would do like, you know, a lot of the plays, and I like, you know, studied, was it a theatre and media studies, that kind of thing at school. And I decided that I didn't want to be the paint, you know, as an actor or something like that. I wanted to be the painter. So I really got into, I've always been a massive movie buff, and I got into that. And then I moved to Bournemouth because at the Arts Institute there, they had a really good program for film and animation production. And I joined that as like to train to be an editor. And I was working at Waitrose at the time. Sounds very posh, but I was not. And yeah, I was working there about 3 days a week to try and pay my rent and everything and cover fees and stuff. And there was a guy there who was working in fruit and veg, who I'm still really good friends with, Jim, this guy, Jim Younger. And he's very musical himself. And he's just working there in the fruit and veg section. And I was one of the stockroom boys, and he would literally just hear me singing all day long in the stockroom. And eventually he came over and he said, mate, are you in a band at all? And I was like, no. And he just said, I play a bit of guitar, like we can hang out and, you know, drink and smoke, and we can basically, you know, play some songs together. And I was like, man, that sounds cool. And it kind of, he was so encouraging, and he basically just believed in me in such a way. And I respected him. You know, he could play guitar well and knew a lot about music, and kind of taught me a bit more about appreciating music in a certain way. And it inspired me to get a guitar and, you know, start seeing whether or not I could like rekindle that desire that I had when I was younger. And during the time that we were kind of playing and noodling on guitars and I was trying to write songs so badly, I was in the Arts Institute in Bournemouth again on the course. And I went and would always go and get like a hot chocolate from this machine. And there just happened to be a poster up that said, are you the next great frontman? Are you here to make your mark on the world? Something like that. I must have it somewhere, and like buried in a box or something. I should have dug it out for this. But anyway, it had like a load of numbers, you know, that you can pull off, and somebody had pulled off one already. And there was something in me, that an arrogance or something like that. But I just thought, do you know what? If I was to make an advert, that's what I'd want. I would want them to be like that confident. And I thought, I didn't do it straight away, but I went around and I was chatting, you know, some of my mates on the course. I was like, what do you think to that? And they were kind of like, yeah, man, you're always so vocal. You've got a big gob on you, so why not give it a go? And eventually, I think maybe later on that week, I just went back there, and I think maybe another one had been ripped off, and I just ripped them all off. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this. So I called them up, and they were a band called The Adored, and they had a whole bunch of songs, and they had a frontman already who had helped like work with them for quite a while, but they got a younger guitarist in, and they were also just, I think the guy had kids as well. So it was kind of like, he just wasn't able to commit in the same way. And I was this, you know, spunky young lad who was just like, yeah, man, I'm, you know, I've got all the time in the world. I'm at uni kind of thing. And yeah, we met, and at first I think they were a little bit skeptical because I hadn't really done any music, but I showed them some of the like poetry and lyrics and stuff like that I'd written. And I know the drummer was really keen, and the bass player was kind of, you know, the bass player, this guy, Terry, we became really good friends and went on and developed more bands together. But basically they didn't snap me up straight away. And I think it took about 3 months for me to even get into like do a rehearsal, even though I'd like learned the songs in a week or something like that. But anyway, I felt like they weren't committing to me, and I was just raring to go. I think that I'd crossed that boundary within myself to say, right, I am actually, this is something that I feel inside of me again. And so I took like the 5 songs that I'd written on acoustic guitar that were like terrible, and I just decided to go out there and play them. So I started playing a couple of gigs, and it was so embarrassing, but they came to one of them, and after that they just said, yeah, okay, we'll get rehearsals going. And then I rehearsed with them like 3 times, I think, and me and Terry, the bassist, hung out, and we just really got on. And I think even in that time, you know, like within the month, we'd actually written a song together, and it was kind of, you know, it just, this is magic, right? To me, it was magic, and it was so new. So in the end, I quit the course. So I think I think I'd been there for 6 months, and suddenly all of this music stuff kicked off, and I decided that I wasn't going to do that anymore. And
abrupt decision making there.
Yeah. But I think that's always been me, you know, like, or it was, you know, as you get older, you kind of hesitate a little bit more for, you know, it's a bit of a sin, I think. But so I committed to these guys, and we hung around in Bournemouth for a little bit longer. And the funny thing was the name, The Adored, V2, Virgin's sister label, they'd signed an American pop punk band who were calling themselves The Adored. And I think, I don't know, I can probably say now, but we ended up owning like the .com, and we had so much proof of use on everything that, and it's such a good band name, you know, if you think like it's from the lyric of Ian Brown, you know, Stone Roses, isn't it? I want to be adored. Yeah. So it was such a good band name, and there was a little bit of a hoo-ha about it. And I think there was like something like 5 other bands around the world that were also using it. So V2 ended up like writing us a check for $5,000 to let us give up the domain and give over the rights to it and everything.
Nice.
And we had that battle of who gets to name the band and how do you do it. And because of it was the bassist actually who came up with it. I think the drummer, we were all like big Rolling Stones fans, and I think the drummer really wanted to call us the Loving Cups, which is just, I don't know, I like the sentiment, but it didn't quite sit very well. And there is this softer side to us guys. So
what kind of
Terry,
music
the bassist,
was
had seen.
Sorry, as just a.
So I would say, yeah. So I would say it was kind of like a Black Crows kind of vibe, but with almost like the reason why they started to be in a band in the first place was because of Oasis, right? So
okay.
dare I say?
Yeah, you mentioned Stone Roses, so I was wondering if that was the kind of. So what?
Yeah.
A kind of a 90s inspired Britpop mixed with some kind of classic hard rock, that kind of sound?
Yeah, so I wouldn't even say it was hard rock. I don't think it was anywhere near hard rock. So if you imagine like the Stones with a Britpop Americana vibe, that's probably... Right. I wish I knew that back then, because when people say, what do you sound like? It's the worst question, right? And you're like, always, yeah. Excellent. Oh, I've been dying to answer this question. So, yeah, I would say we dressed like the Black Crows as well. And I never, like, I think I didn't realize I knew them until Terry gave me, like, as a welcome to the band gift, he gave me the box set of the Counting Crows, and I just absorbed these things and was like, oh my god, this is so cool. And I think we thought we were, like, you know, we were so cocksure, we were peacocks strutting around Bournemouth, and I think we thought we were so cool, you know. And then we were selling out a venue there called Mr. Smith's. I don't even know if it's still going, but we had like a good group of people around us, you know, good friends, and you know, a decent fan base growing. And I'm really happy with where I'm at now, so I can never say it's a mistake. But I think as far as like us making a success of that band, I think we made the mistake and moved to London. You know, we should have stayed there and started generating, say, an audience in Southampton, or you know, do that kind of thing. And so
you guys, apologies, you guys basically rebranded, changed your name, and moved to London. Is that right? Yeah.
So it all felt right. Like myself, I always wanted to be in London anyway. I was brought up in Plymouth, born in York, raised in Plymouth, moved to Bournemouth. It was all like stepping stones to going to like the big city, basically. Like for me, London was just where I wanted to be, you know. So we rebranded, and we moved to London. And whilst we were there, we had a good time. We all lived together. There was 5 of us, and we all lived together in this big house up in Muswell Hill. Well, it was Colney Hatch, which isn't as posh as Muswell Hill, but it was close enough to say we were, you know, walking in the footsteps of the Muswell Hillbillies. I've suddenly forgotten the name of that bloody band. Who did Waterloo Sunset? What were they called? Totally gone blank.
Yeah,
but anyway,
I'm drawing a blank on that one, man.
Yeah, they we felt good, and we were going around, and we got like a 6-month residency at the Rock Garden in Covent Garden, and played our brand of rock and roll to people sat there eating linguine. Do you know what I mean? And drinking white wine.
Fantastic.
And you're just like, this is weird. But I think we ended up meeting some amazing people. And one of my favorite things about music is when you see, like, basically how we met, you know, when you see people come together and they just bond. And that to me is like magic. And I know people, and I know groups of people who are still really good friends. And inside, I just think to myself, yeah, you met at one of our gigs. That is so cool. Anyway,
yeah, for sure.
We played a lot, actually. We did this thing where we played 30 nights in 30 days, and that was good fun. Nice. And we basically played all around London.
What was the new name? I kind of threw you off of that thread.
Oh yeah. So the new name was Freedom High. Oh. And whilst it sounds like an American high school, I think it worked for the sound. It just wasn't very cool, but the sentiment behind it was amazing, because myself and Terry, we really Terry came up with the name, but what I was going to say was myself and Terry, we really have like this connection about how like a problem with racism. not that we have a problem with racism, like ourselves, we're not racist. What I mean is we really feel that struggle and for them. And basically he was watching a documentary about Martin Luther King, and Martin Luther King was saying, like, we need to go on this march, and it's a high, it's our freedom high. And so we felt that was, maybe it's really inappropriate that we used it looking back now, but we felt that connection with, you are fighting for your freedom. And we didn't really, I was studying film and animation production, but in my heart of hearts, I knew I was never going to get into that industry. I knew that I would just get my degree and then end up managing at Waitrose or maybe working at Jessup's or something like that, which was, I don't even know if that's even going now, but it's like,
sure.
Anyway. And so we took that name Freedom High, and we basically made everything like it was like our protest about wanting to do this for, as our life. And we were really keen to be like a touring rock and roll band. And so we got like an old battered police van, and I remember we decided to do, we decided to start doing street gigs then, like guerrilla street gigs, and just turn up in this van and bundle out. And we'd made these placards, just planks of wood with this kind of corrugated, it was like a plastic, and we painted Freedom High on it and like the logo and stuff like that on these placards. And when we jump out and start playing, we'd have them laying around. So when people stopped, as they would do in central London, right, you're in Leicester Square or whatever, and this band's just pulled up and they start bashing out rock and roll songs, and I'm just there like stood on top of one of the speakers like screaming like, yeah, come on everybody, that kind of thing. They just pick up these placards. So it created like a kind of protest riot kind of looking scene. And we ended up just meeting a lot of people that way, and we'd go out and flyer outside other people's gigs, like not just any gig, but if say the Raconteurs were playing or something like that was big then. We would go outside. I remember we'd queue outside the Astoria and then just start chatting to people in the crowd and then hand out the flyers. We couldn't afford to go to the gig. But we'd printed these flyers and we're like, oh yeah, I'm in a band, cool, oh yeah, cool, and just chat to them. And we met more people that way, and we just felt like we were on this high, pun intended, I guess. We'd carried on this thing from Bournemouth, where it was like, okay, we can come to London and we can make a buzz and we can really go for it. And we ended up doing that 30 days in the 30 nights and 30 days thing, and that was like a big thing. No band that was unsigned was kind of doing that kind of thing, and we were really hammering it. We still had that rock and roll belief where like you can drink a bottle of Jack Daniels and look cool, and it's like it was crass, really, I suppose, if that's the right word. But we ended up playing on HMS Belfast, which was quite a feat, and I think there's only a few other bands have ever done that. And that was, we got a lot of positives from it. But as these things tend to, run their course, we weren't really developing our sound, and we weren't really growing in the right direction. And I think, well, we did, but I think it just came too late. And by that time, I was already developing a bit more as a songwriter, and the guitarist, who was like a predominant songwriter, because we'd had these old songs from The Adored, that he was a new guy and I was a new guy. I felt like we wanted to like maybe put our mark on things now, and we started to come into our own. But me and him, rather than growing together, we started to grow a bit further apart. And whilst everybody in the band had their place to drive it, myself and him, we were almost like the catalysts for going to London. So I feel like as things started to like, I'm going to say like, fall apart, we had like interband politics. It hadn't grown the way we wanted it to. We just ended up, falling apart basically. And when when he decided that he was going to go off and do an electro punk thing, we were almost like, I don't want to say relieved, because I don't, if he's watching this, it's like, it's all's fair in love and war or whatever, right?
Sure,
it's like,
sure,
it's all cool.
It's
but
a classic case
like,
of creative differences, right?
Creative differences, yeah. And so him leaving was almost like a breath of fresh air for us, or a boost, not to kind of like, hey, screw you, man, we can do this.
Mm-hmm.
But it was almost like a creative freedom, because we didn't have to worry about how he felt about things, and I felt like I could evolve. We also, I've jumped the gun a bit, but we also recorded at Sphere with him, and I think maybe we'd started to change the band again. We were, because of some of the songs that were getting written, they became a bit more edgy, a bit less rock and roll, and I think we'd had like some interest from an A&R guy or something like that, and it was one of these things where, sorry, my mind's, when you open these doors, you go down a little bit of a nostalgic route. I just thought there was a really cool guy who was in a big band in the 80s called Voice of the Beehive, and he's called Martin Brett, and he was the bass player there, and he actually managed Freedom High for a period of time. And yeah, it was just good times, good experiences and things like that. And we had the daughter of Martin Kemp, Harley Moon Kemp is her name, and she even managed Freedom High for a period of time. So we tried these things and kind of had this taste of like another, possibly going to like another level, with like celebrity people, that kind of thing. I think we'd even auditioned to have one of our songs, because they'd heard it. They invited us up to Liverpool for us to maybe have a song played in Hollyoaks, and they wanted to audition us for acting to see whether or not they could integrate it into the story, because I think they had a timeline of one of the characters would go off on tour with the band. And so we'd had these tastes of these things, and I don't know, it was kind of, the band was probably divided. Do we become this kind of band, or do we actually become focus on music? And for me particularly, whilst those things are kind of nice, because they're going to bring you stability and comfort, it's not actually what I would like our music to be known for. And that might be considered snobbery or pretentious or arrogant or something like that, because I understand you've got to get what you've got to get. But like I said earlier on, like my stuff, I want stuff to mean things. I don't just want it to be consumption for consumption's sake, right? And so we'd recorded these tracks at Sphere with, I feel bad now, his name's eluded me, but he'd worked with like Mick Jagger and Simply Red, like, and again, they're commercial guys, but it's really decent artistry, and whilst we were there, Duran they were like renting a room, and we'd kind of seen them popping in and out, and you kind of like, oh god, now that's cool, and yeah, we'd recorded some tracks, and they had a bit more of a polished and they were a bit more polished, but also edgier than the rock and roll kind of Americana we were trying to do. And it felt like there was a clash between myself and the guitarist. So, whose songs were better and that kind of thing. And I'm just not down with that. That doesn't float my boat. We're all in it together if we're in a band. And I think he was there thinking, why the hell aren't we connecting more? We should have, but I don't know, egos, right? So he left, and that just gave me like an impetus to kind of write more, and mean what I say, and say what I mean, and mean what I say within the lyrics, and we just did these home recordings and put them on a CD and started dishing them about. I think I'd made some like fanzine type sheets of paper that folded up, and just littered them around Camden pubs. And we carried on with these playing in the street gigs. And there were just obviously in Camden, everybody is there for the rock and the roll, you know? So if you play in Camden, you will stop the traffic, and you will stop the traffic, and the buses and the police come along. So we had this all the time, and we were playing in the street quite regularly. I remember there was a Camden Rocks, but it was called Camden Crawl at the time. That was on, and we'd applied to like play one of the venues, and we hadn't got it. So we thought, well, yeah, stuff it. Let's get in the van and go out and play in the evening. And it was huge. You know, I almost think like it wasn't like Coco huge, but we, you know, without even being listed on the festival and without having a venue, we probably played to a lot more people than some of the other bands, you know. And I mean, someone might say that's cheating or something, but we just did it and we made it our thing, and it gave people a real buzz. So we ended up just doing more with that. We got invited to Italy to do like a weekend tour kind of thing, and that was magic. And we had this raw electro edge, and I was a very visceral frontman who would kind of like, you know, just be in the moment and pull out all the, you know, my voice is nowhere near it, but it was very Freddie Mercury-esque, you know, and Jagger-esque. It's like, you know, pumping the crowd up and doing all of that, kind of posing and everything. But it was all real, you know. And we would also do these house parties, and so we would do house parties, and that just got us more into like the Camden scene of that time. You know, it changes every year because people come and go, and people work in the bars that everyone knows, like the Hawley and the Lock Tavern, and these bars that are quite notorious there. But, you know, I wouldn't say, you know, we were trying to be professional, but we were on this level where it's almost like, you know, you're still at this amateur level, because all the professionals, they wouldn't drink at the Hawley or these, you know, I don't want to say posh, I'm going to say like showy pubs, you know, these, the Hawley's a great pub, but, you know, everyone goes there to be a peacock and strut around and everything. So, you know, we weren't hanging out in the right places. And again, I felt like we'd fallen into this trap of, we basically spent 2 years playing the same songs, and we weren't really developing that. And we kind of slipped into more of a party vibe. And we had ambitions. We were going to go and do a 30 days in Italy. So we were going to take that concept and go there. And we had a guy who'd hooked us up with a load of contacts, and he was going to be our sound engineer and also our bus, you know, our tour driver and everything. And we just, sorry, I thought we, but actually myself and the bassist were really keen, and the guitarist, he was definitely just like up for going along with whatever happened. But I think the drummer was just, he hit this point where he was like, look, I've decided I'm going to get married, and I don't want to pursue this anymore. I can't pursue this anymore. And I think that threw us, because we had like a kind of, you know, you have these tipping points in life, don't you? Where it's like, okay, if we had done that, then this would have happened. If we did that, that would have happened. And we looked back, me and the bass player looked back and went, crap, we really wanted to push this. And at that particular point, like maybe it was like a month or two before, we should have done that, where we were saying, I think there was talk of basically getting another drummer. And it wasn't like bad mouth. I can't say it was like bad mouthing or anything like that, but it was because we were umming and ahhing about going on that Italian trip. It would have meant we had to like give up the house. We had to give up our jobs, you know, at least for a month. But, you know, it was almost like that risk of losing the stability. Right. And so it was the leap of faith, basically. And we didn't do it. And I think me and the bassist, I was still very much, we're a band, we're a unit. It's, if you change the people, then it changes the band, right? And yet me and the bassist, we were still just so up for doing it. We ended up realizing that was possibly a mistake, and the straw that broke the camel's back or whatever. It was like, you know, it killed it. And so we decided, because we had been kind of working on some songs ready for Call Me Animal, which was that band, and much cooler name than Freedom High, although, you know, still love the Freedom High message. we decided that we were going to just start afresh. And I think.
So just to clarify, sorry.
Yeah. No. Sorry.
Was it Call Me Animal that was going to go on the Italian tour, or was this Freedom High?
Yeah.
So
I forgot to say that we.
Is that when the guitarist changed, then that the band went from
Yes.
Freedom High to Call Me Animal?
Yeah. Sorry. Or I think it might have been transitioning as he was leaving. So it was almost like, you know, we were evolving from this, well, not evolving. We were just sidestepping. Really, we were like, hang on, this is so much more fun. And I suppose it's all, you know, when you're in a band, you're trying to like catch a wave, aren't you? Or at least we were, you know. I think we had this we had this mixed ethos, which I've got to say, like, I think that's always a troubling thing, you know, like I struggle with it myself now to a point where it's like, no, Arron, you've got to remember what your principles are, right? So I think we had this mixed ethos of we're trying to catch a wave, you know, or we're trying to do what we genuinely believe in. And for me, Call Me Animal was obviously because I was like, you know, we were all working on the songs and everything, but I was like instigating the songs, let's say that. So it's like, you know, I was instigating the songs. So I was trying to find my voice. So for me, it was 100% authentic. And it felt like that's why it evolved, or that's why it kind of had, it felt more real, because we weren't trying to catch a wave or do something. But Freedom High evolving into Call Me Animal and the guitarist leaving, it was almost like we were trying to fit into a niche again, or fit into a specific box. And it was because it was like it was like 2008 to 2010 or something like that. And you know, the music around at that time just had that kind of electro indie pop kind of vibe. Yeah, I can't even think of some of the, you know, like I'm trying to think of some of the bands and everything, but I don't want to, you know, look it up if you care. But we just thought, you know, like we can do that, you know, so we kind of changed our mode to do it. And I think there was too much of that going on. And then when the guitarist left and we kind of said, right, what are we doing? Okay, we're going to commit to this. And we kind of embodied the energy of that band. And I think that's what people really connected with, because it was like, it was serious. You know, we were like, we are here to do the job, and this is who we are. So it had weight behind it and energy. And we weren't pretending. I think that was the thing. We weren't really pretending, and people knew that, you know. And also to have the guts to just pull up in a van and jump out. And it was an old police van, you know, it was like a battered old police van. So we jumped out and people are like, what the F is going on here? And then we'd rock out and stop the traffic. So there's there's like pictures online where I'm stood in the street and there's like a double-decker bus right in front of me. And then we put this video together with one of the songs that we'd recorded at Sphere, and it was called Generator. And it was about like, I've got this song called Alive on the new album, on the album. Basically, it's just about taking your power, you know, taking your power and just doing something with it. And I think it inspired people, and stopping in the street and having like a bus driver toot his horn in time with the music rather than shouting at you, get out the effing way. You know, it was magic, you know. So anyway, like that ran its course as well. And myself and the bassist, we decided that we were going to take the new songs we were writing and forget the old songs, and take the new songs and turn it into another band. And that kind of had, because it was predominantly myself and Terry originally, having worked on the songs, and then we started like demoing stuff, and we met a very, very good guitarist called Vinnie Minotto, and he was very much a metal background, but he'd seen the video for Generator, and he loves music. So it's not just metal and rock. You know, he appreciates pop and indie and stuff, but he was excited by that, and he thought, well, I'd love to fuse my rock with that indie vibe that you guys have. And so we started developing the demos that we had together, and I think we had something like 35 songs that we cut down to about 15. And Vinnie knew this drummer who's a great Tommy Moforth, who's a great rock drummer, and he just said, I think Tommy would be great for this project. So yeah, we ended up having a rehearsal, and we were singing we were rehearsing, and we were still in the house, you know, so we were still in the house with the guitarist and the old guitarist and the old drummer from Call Me Animal. And so that was a lot of tension and friction, and but it was explosive, and it was still, you know, it helped drive the thing for us to develop Panic Island. But I think doing that, there was like, I realized that I had to like tap into my rock vein more, you know. And I've always been like a big fan of the Cult, and I haven't always been a big fan of AC/DC, but I got into AC/DC, you know, in my 20s, and I was just like, man, I can tap into that. I've got the energy, you know. And we were basically in this attic, and in the summer you'd just be drenched in sweat, like all four of us, like bashing these songs out. And I think some of the songs were like, there was one song called Morphine, and like the chorus was like, give me more morphine. And I'm like, yeah, that's okay, the cool, you know, the melody and the music was fine, but again, I've never had to take morphine, and singing give me more morphine, it's just a bit naff, you know, for me. Like I have to believe what I'm singing about. And so those 15 songs kind of whittled down to like maybe 9 or 10, and we dropped the crap, the ones that they weren't crap, but the ones that we were just like, yeah, this is just rock for rock's sake. Where's our message here? So there was still like that vein of wanting to fight the system, and I still had my kind of, you know, duality of man. I've forgotten the word now, but you know, just existentialism vibe going on. And I've got to say, like, it was really, really good times musically, because I felt like I developed so much more. And during that time, or even again, like, you know, time blends together, I'd met Paul Tipler, the guy who's produced the debut album. And he just says, oh, well, I remember you because you were somebody who, you know, you wouldn't take any crap, but you weren't rude with it, but you would just, you know, we were in a room full of people, and there was like he would host, he was like on a panel of hosts for a music kind of, I forget what they call it now, but it's almost like a first aid thing for music. So bands would turn up and they would play their tracks to the room, and then they would give their critique on it, and it would be constructive, you know, but it might not be what you wanted to hear. And there was a whole load of people there, and basically I'd played them Generator, and somebody had said something like, oh, this is just a bit kind of too poppy, you know, too not common. I've forgotten the word now. I keep forgetting my words. The you know, not corporate, commercial. Sorry, that's it.
Sure.
So he was saying, oh yeah, it's too commercial. And I basically, you know, they were championing like an indie thing. And I basically just confronted them all and said, what are you talking about? Like, without the Madonnas of the world, without the U2s of the world, the money would not come in the same way to trickle down and feed the indie artists, right? Because we had Facebook, we had MySpace, YouTube was starting to get bigger. Do you know what I mean? So we didn't have the technology and the software and the tools. And, you know, this was, I remember the studio we had in the house that I lived in with the 5 guys. We had, you know, Valve State, not amplifiers, but compressors and stuff like that. And these things weighed more than all of this together, and you're like, what the hell? So technology and all of that stuff's advanced so much that now I'm like,
whole career from a laptop.
And I love that, because now it's like, you don't have to compromise. Sure, you've got to make certain compromises in life, or you might have to compromise, if you're desiring a certain outcome. But even then, with the Call Me Animal stuff, before Panic Island like grew, I was stood there still championing like an old school mentality, because I was from that era, where it's like it's crossing over into the new technologies. I wasn't scared of it. I just didn't have a clue about it. So,
sure.
So you're just like, whatever, man. Like, we were still on that getting a record deal trip. And I think that was a shame, because that kind of set Panic Island off on that foot. And I almost, again, things run their course. I'm really happy with where I'm at, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for all of these experiences that I've been able to build upon and call my own. And there were some magic moments. So, with Panic Island, we recorded the first EP with Paul Tipler, who was at that music clinic, and he was just saying, man, you got a fire in your belly, lad. So we ended up recording the first EP with him, which was 4 tracks. 3 tracks.
Fever.
Yes.
3.
Yeah. It's 3, isn't it? Yeah. And that was amazing, because that was like, I'd recorded at Sphere, and I'd recorded at something else called Farmhouse Records with Freedom High, and they were great. But this was the first time where it was like, man, I'm like involved in this in such a bigger way. And we had other people. We had a manager at the time, and we had other people around us, and we were kind of like, again, another one of those peaks before the trough. It was like, this is exciting, this could go somewhere. And we played and we played and we played and we played. And it's funny how the people from Freedom High and the people from Call Me Animal, they were from those, when you love a band, right? And you don't really want it to change. So the people who were kind of like following us, they were still friends of ours, but they weren't really into the music, and it's kind of like, I remember at some of the Call Me Animal house plays, you'd have people who were there from Freedom High, and they didn't get it. They were there going, I'm not really enjoying this as much, because they wanted to be on the Belfast, or they wanted to be playing the 100 Club and stuff like that. So we'd like sold out the 100 Club like 3 times, so nice. You see your fan, I say fans, because a lot of it's still just friends, you're going out, socializing and meeting people. But when your friends are your fans, you see them evolve and change as you do. And that's fair enough, because Panic Island became a lot more rocky, and that's thanks to Vin. And I think it really just opened up my mind, in so many ways, because he brought like such a sophisticated element to music, because he is a solid guitar player. And we did the first EP, and we pushed and pushed and pushed, and ended up playing Brixton Splash in front of like I think on the day there was something like 42,000 people milling around, or that could have been the weekend. I know it's Saturday and Sunday, so there's like 42,000 people milling around Brixton for that event, and we could have easily played in front of almost like 8,000 to 10,000 people in front of us, because it was huge and it was sweltering. And we literally played 3 songs which were off the EP, and got off the stage, and we had a really great drummer at the time, and a bass player who he ended up leaving because he wanted to be a guitar player, and is a guitar player in his own band now.
Terry,
no, oh crikey, yeah, sorry. So Terry, sorry that I've jumped the gun again. Like, this is the thing. There's so much that's happened that it all blurs together, particularly when you're my age. But he, Terry, we played with Terry, and I think from Terry's point of view, he's a few years older than I was, and he'd just rekindled like the most beautiful like love story for me, aside from my own with Polina.
Mm-hmm.
He was, when I met him, he was with a lady who they were really like close together, and they moved in together, and then we moved to London. And as that evolved, they ended up moving apart from each other. And so when Panic Island started kicking off and was doing its thing, we ended up going down to Bournemouth and playing a gig there. And there was like a close friend of hers and a close friend of his who were married. And I ended up overhearing something and kind of said, I think you should, have a word with Tell. And, next thing you know, we're on the bus back from the gig in Bournemouth, and Terry's like, I think I'm going to message, and I'm like, yeah, I think you should, man. And then, it just took off. And so he just said, look, mate, I love what we've done with Panic Island. I really, really am, really, really want you to carry it on. I think we'd also gone through like maybe 3 drummers or something like that, because Tommy was doing professional work as a drummer. And I think it just took off and off and off for him. So, it was kind of like back and forth. And I think that just took its toll on Tell. And he was like, mate, I've set this thing up. It's your baby now. You and Vinnie own it. So me and Vinnie took that. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, so that's kind of, Tell obviously came with you all the way from Freedom High through Call Me Animal. He was
from
there
the Adored.
From the Adored. Yeah. So from literally the beginning of your journey. And then so by this phase, it was the kind of last, almost an end of an era with that. And then from that point onwards. And so Terry, he played on the EP, right? On the recording.
Yeah. On the first one.
Wrote those songs with you or co-wrote.
Yes, exactly. And Terry was, such an amazing driving force. Like when he left, I realized that there were a lot of things that, you don't know what it's got you don't know what you've got until it's gone. And I think with Terry, he was, me and Vinnie, I'm a driver, let's say, or I'm a pusher. And Terry's like a glue, but Terry's also a driver, but he was so good at doing the glue for everything we've ever done. He would always be like, yeah, let's do that. And then, he would be putting the hours in at the computer, like whether it was working on songs or whether it was, social media and stuff like that. Without Terry, without Terry, I do not think I'd be where I am today, because I've also learned so much from that guy. I'm like blowing sugar up his butt, but that's just because he is a brother to me.
Clearly he's had a big impact.
Huge. And I think the main reason for that is because he was, when I played way back those acoustic songs in the Slug and Lettuce in Bournemouth, and he was trying to get me into the Adored, he was like, this is our frontman, and so he believed in me. And I think, if you grow up like searching for validation, which I certainly did, split family, that kind of thing, didn't know my mum, all that kind of, baggage, let's say, that you don't know how to deal with when you're a kid. I got all of that validation from my best mate, Tell. And I remember in Call Me Animal, he once pulled me to one side and he said, we were drunk, but we played some gigs that day. And he was just like, you don't know how good you are. And I was like, calm down. And he said, no, you're always underselling yourself and you need to start like embracing that. And for me, it's like, I just don't want to be arrogant. It's like, I want to go, my album's coming out. I want to scream it from the rooftops, but I also don't want to force anybody to get it. That's why it's called what it's called. It's like, you decide. But Panic Island evolved after Terry left, and that's where we played the Brixton Splash, and we had another manager there. She's actually like a professional manager now, which is amazing, because she was starting out and I think she was studying there, and she actually manages a country act. I think her name's Jess Tristane. I might have spelled that wrong, pronounced that wrong.
That's the one that Vinnie plays guitar.
And that's who Vinnie plays guitar
for.
That
makes
now.
Sense. Okay.
Yeah. And what's funny is I met Livia is the manager's name. I met her when I was playing the Rock Garden in Covent Garden with Freedom High. So it's funny how it's such a small world and all this stuff circles background. But so Vinny's doing well with that. But I want to, you know, Panic Island is like exciting for me. You know, after this moment that Terry left, we decided, right, man, you're a rock guitarist and I'm just a visceral frontman, right? We write songs, let's push this, you know. And I felt like more of the weight of writing, say, the songs from like a lyrical and chord point of view was on me. Vinny can come in and polish the music up, you know. Exactly. And so we basically found this. I ended up going part-time at work and we ended up pushing the first EP and it got into like Q magazine and we started getting like a lot of PR and stuff, which we you know, I don't let this, if anyone out there is watching this podcast and they're interested in being in a band and they don't know so much about it, like, don't let this fool you. Like, you have to write your own press release. You have to pay people to go and plug this to everybody. So it's not as glamorous as it seems. Obviously, when it's not paying for itself, you're having to work and do all of this stuff. So, but it was magic to see it in operation, you know. And we had again, you know, started to kind of like drum up a kind of social circle and a group of friends and people. And I think, I won't go into it, but there was like a hiccup along the way. And again, we ended up losing like, you know, a certain number of people who were like tied to us, and we lost like the drummer and the bassist. Or we lost the bassist first. He decided he just wanted to be a guitar player, which is fair enough. You know, don't do what you love, you know, and love what you do. Don't waste your time. So we ended up getting George Todd in on bass, and he was just like, he is like a bundle of energy and such a joy to play with. And since Panic Island kind of disbanded, he is he's doing something with a band called Flora's Bar and Grill, and I know that they're putting some music out as well, so shout out to them and all that. But it's great to see, you know, that he's using his energy, because he was such a joy to work with. And we ended up meeting a guy called George Gill, and he had like a kind of, I won't say what it is, but he had like a family connection to the industry, and it's quite a big connection. And we were kind of, he hadn't really drummed in a rock band or anything before, and we were kind of, you know, he was still so new and fresh, so we were saying, okay, let's do this. And we had, you know, there was like an element of interband politics where, again, it felt like maybe we were forcing something rather than trying to kind of naturally follow the evolution of it. And I felt like there was just a lot of kind of friction there, and that meant that the drummer ended up deciding that he wanted to pursue other things and kind of get into more of a hip hoppy kind of vibe, you know. And George. George. George and George.
George. It was the Georges, right?
Yeah. And whenever I say George, they're like, which one? And I'm like, George drummer, George bassist. But anyway, both wonderful, beautiful guys. Yet they, you know, George bassist stuck around with us for a bit longer whilst we tried out like a couple of other drummers. And I forgot, like, we, you know, when we had the Italian drummer who played at the Brixton Splash, we'd gone to Wales and recorded a 5-track EP, and it kind of felt a bit sad that we hadn't gone back to Tipler and done 5 tracks with him and then made the whole thing an album. But I suppose because we'd revamped Panic Island into more of this rock hard, like a slightly harder rock vibe, it felt more appropriate to go. We went with Romesh Dondagonda, and he produced
like Bring Me the Horizon.
Yes, yeah, that's his one right now. I'm trying to think. But I mean, what's funny there is he's a huge Oasis fan, and he's not ashamed to admit it. so when I was singing and we're there working together, he really appreciated what I brought to it, which is, you know, it's like okay, you're singing, you're doing a pop thing as well, but with a rock vibe, you know. So anyway, anyway, we had that EP and we sat on it for too long, and we should have put it out. And then with the new guys, the Georges, we should have worked on a new thing, but we still hadn't put out this other stuff. And it was like, it dragged and it took too long. And, you know, timing is quite important, I think, especially when you've got other people around you, you know, momentum, that's it. Yeah. And so we had, you know, we played a couple of Camden Crawls, or Camden Rocks, and, you know, we'd met you, and it just felt like, you know, I know we'd put on, it was Battle Scars that we put out, and Battle Scars, I think we were filming the video or something, and afterwards we went for a pint in the pub, and there was this angelic beauty dancing there. Happened to be Polina, and I just met her, and nothing really happened for a while between us, but I just felt this kind of connection with somebody on like a really deep level. And Panic Island had like various other drummers, and I think in the end we played a Camden Rocks with such a good drummer, and she had so much energy as well. But I think the venue we played, it felt like maybe we weren't going anywhere, or it was like a step back. And I had already started like writing my own tracks just for me, you know, and I guess things ran their course, and Vinnie was doing like his guitaring was taking off more, and it just felt like, I don't want to say like, oh, poor old me, I was going to be stuck doing nothing, but I felt like I couldn't carry the whole thing myself, you know, because when you're doing something and you have to wait for other people to kind of give their opinions or do this or do that, or suddenly it's like, well, I'm not the rock guitarist here. Do you know what I mean? I'm not the rock drummer. I'm not this, I'm not that. All I can do is do this. And when I'm creating stuff for myself, I do it so it feels right for me, you know, because it is cathartic. It's like it's absolving something within me, like a conflict, or I'm expressing my passion. And I want that to kind of, I need it to transcend in music, right? I can't just slap something that's like, you know, oh, that'll do for Panic Island. It needs to be rockier, because I feel like maybe it loses its message, you know, because you're meant to be working together. So it felt like this could easily just evolve into a solo project. And if it's going to be a solo project, I don't want it to be Panic Island, even though I love what Panic Island did, and I'm so proud of it. Just like I love what Call Me Animal did, and I love what, you know, The Adored evolved into Freedom High. I kind of, you know, I loved those times. I'm particularly proud of Call Me Animal because I felt like that was genuinely coming from just like the pit of my stomach, right? And because I was younger, I was probably a bit more anti-establishment, and I'm still anti-establishment now, but in a maybe a softer way. But I'm not bashing my head against the wall, you know. But
the thing
it
is,
feels
for me,
now.
Apologies to interrupt.
No.
I mean, for me, like Panic Island was a fantastic band. I mean, it was really like had the full package. And
it ticks so many boxes.
Yeah. I mean, I met you during the Panic Island time, and it was just after Terry had gone. So it was in this phase where it was really you and Vinnie driving it, and then you had the Georges with you.
And it was fresh, right? It was fresh. Like,
there was some fresh energy there, and I think that so when I'd met you, there was still, you know, a little bit of a upstroke. You'd had the first EP, and you know there was a rise there, and perhaps a bit of a fall, which is often the way after a big release. But yeah, you had some fresh energy in there, and I met you guys during that time, and you were just fantastic. I thought. I mean, you really kind of blew me away, and if anything, I remember at that time so much. the big thing I was always talking to you is like, I was almost confused at why this band wasn't massive. You know, I mean, I just
I
thought,
remember you saying,
like, as you said, like I thought that the combination that you and Vinnie had, it worked excellently. Like, as you said, it was clear that you were able to be more authentic with your songwriting. I mean, you say there perhaps Call Me Animal was really kind of going down to your stomach, but I mean, the songwriting there was powerful. It was emotional. But man, the music, it was rock. It had an edginess to it that certainly appealed to me, but it was slick, man. It was really slick. And Vinnie is an incredible guitarist,
sensational.
Man. One of the best guitarists
unbelievable
I've ever met, hands down. And
can we plug Pete and Vinnie play? We should.
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
yeah.
Anyone out there who's like really into rock and metal, you need to check out Pete and Vinnie play, because they are unbelievely talented guitarists.
I mean, it's predominantly a YouTube channel that they have, right? It's two of them as guitarists, and they make all kinds of guitar videos, and I'm sure like you can find them on YouTube and on all the socials, I'm sure. But they're doing well for themselves, and they thoroughly deserve it. I mean, those guys are fantastic. But the thing is, I mean, not only can Vinnie obviously play so well, and he can shred and do whatever you want from a guitarist, like he really knew how to serve those songs, and
he's got such a good taste for it, you know. So like,
absolutely.
As far as I was aware, and I suppose he's Brazilian, right? So he's got that fire in his belly, but he's also like, you know, very smooth. This sounds like I'm kind of daydreaming about something else, but no, he knows when to play light and when to play heavy, you know what I mean? And he's just got that passion with it. And how could I possibly do that with a solo project under Panic Island?
Well, it's a different thing for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I felt as well like the EP wasn't, the second EP should have come out sooner.
Yeah, with momentum. Yeah.
And
you guys were sitting on that for ages. When I met you,
too long.
You'd done the first EP, and you were performing all those songs from the second, and they were fantastic songs.
Yes.
But you were really sitting on them. They were hidden away. Like,
and I don't know,
really allowed to hear them.
Other than wanting to kind of not just release them to nobody, I'm not quite sure. Maybe the guys look to me because I'm, you know, the frontman is predominantly like known to be the leader. And something that I've come to realize over time is that I'm not actually a leader. You know, when you say like, right, the theme
as you say, you're a driver, you're a bundle of energy that wants to push things forward. But
so I think, in all honesty, Panic Island benefited most when we had Liv as the manager. And I feel like that's probably what we were lacking. Before that, we had another manager who got us in with Tipler to record. He was pushing that, but it was a different energy as well. But I feel like on our own, we're almost like, you know, it's like herding cats. Do you know what I mean?
Well, that's artists.
You know, for
sure, man.
Yeah. You appreciate that. So
we all have those experiences. Yeah. I mean,
there's a lot of emotion involved, and I wouldn't even say there was politics involved. I just decided that, and to be fair, you know, to put my hands up, like I had a couple of kind of personal life hiccups, let's say, you know, and I don't want to go into them because it's personal, right? But with that kind of thing happening, I felt like maybe that might have been something that made Vinnie kind of take one step out, you know, just kind of like, okay, I'm gonna just be this guy, you know, he might have just said this guy could quit anytime, right? Because life gets tough, whatever. And you just say, okay, fine.
Insurance.
Exactly.
It's only
exactly.
Natural.
And in the end, the funny thing is, like, you know, I did, but what's funny as well is Panic Island has never said, right, that's it. Because never say never. And I know how good Panic Island is. And I know, have we got on Love Anarchy, we've got some of the EPs up.
Yep, so
they will be.
Yeah, they will be, and we have them on the playlist and things like that. Yeah.
So anyone who's interested, check
Yeah.
out Panic Island, because
Panic
it is
Island's
great.
still up there. The music videos
Yeah.
are absolutely fantastic, and the music for sure. I mean, I think the thing is, especially from that first EP, like when I met you guys, you made you made music videos for each of the 3 songs.
Yeah.
And yeah, and you had all that press and stuff around it, as you said. Especially Temples was obviously a big lead single.
Yeah.
You had a great video for that. And,
so that's what I mean by stuff having meaning behind it, and the need to have a message, because that's like, as far as like a concept goes, that's definitely something that I look at as a great achievement from my point of view. It's obviously a whole band thing, and it's obviously, you know, Vinnie's partner, she was heavily involved in that, and we got a proper director and friends to help. Someone did the makeup, and it was a big budget thing, you know. For us, it was like, you know, a fair amount of money for us to invest into that, but it did the trick, you know. But again, rather than it being DIY and real, we're aiming and pushing to try and be something. And then after that, a few so that's the Temples video, and we put out at the same time the video for We Start Fires, which is basically me and Vinnie performing in a lift that's like a 4-person size lift.
I love that video, though.
A plank of wood holding the door open. And I, with Temples, we sent it off to get professionally edited, but with because we just spent money on making it look so good, it didn't seem fair for me to sit. Because I said at the start, didn't I? Like I began studying as a film editor, and I'll cut corners here and there just to get stuff done, especially now. But I think now also reflects that I have such an invested interest in music videos, you know, because I feel like, of course, like I grew up with Thriller, and I grew up with Sledgehammer, Peter Gabriel's Sledgehammer.
The MTV era, yeah.
Yeah. And even though it's not like a great example of a movie, but Prince with Purple Rain, you know, and and that being
That's
a
fantastic,
film,
man.
like visual. Polina would say, as so many other people would as well, but Polina would say, well, music and fashion are so intertwined. For me, music and film is so intertwined as well, because and I guess that's the same thing, isn't it? Fashion's visual, music videos are visual. So with Panic Island, I put a lot of effort into getting some of these videos together. And, you know, I remember once being up until like 6 a.m. and I had to start work at 8 a.m. you know, so, you know, and when you look at it that way and you think, yeah, man, this takes its toll on you. And you think, we don't have a drummer again. You know, it's like, it just became.
Well, those videos were pretty much just the 2 of you, right?
To begin with,
especially the We Start Fires and Temples was you and Vinnie. But the thing is, man, like even that We Start Fires video, as you say, it was more DIY and kind of a little bit more simple in concept. I still love that video just because it did really actually capture who you guys were at that time. And I mean, you guys really did have a energy about you. I mean, you know, you're obviously such a lovely guy, and you know, we've been great friends, and you know, I'm sure people listening to this can hear that, you know, you're really down to earth, you know, lovely person. But yeah, at that time, man, you definitely you had this edge to you. You know, you were a real in my eyes, at least, like you were a real rock star. You know,
bless you, mate.
You really had that energy, and yeah, especially like an intensity to your performance, but to your character in general. I remember, you know, it took a little while to get beneath the surface and realize.
Oh yeah, but you spotted it. You spotted just how soft I was.
For sure. And same here. But like, yeah, we all had our exteriors then. As you say, it's like there's an element of peacocking to it all, isn't there? When you're being a cool guy in a band, and it was like we all had our own kind of little gangs, you know. And for us guys, we kind of ganged together to
Yes.
sort of try and get a kind of bigger gang going, like made up of our own little pockets, our own little gangs.
Yeah, I loved that. And
Yeah.
again, it's like what you're doing with you look back and you say, okay, it's a shame, but I know the tipping point at which it was like, this just isn't going to happen, and you're like, that's such a shame. But what you are doing with Lavaniverse and everything is just like a similar
it's the
concept
evolution
to that, but on like a much bigger scale. And I
think the main kind of connection there is I think that at that time I really wanted to like really do it, I mean, now I've kind of disconnected it, and I through making it a bit more fantastical and a bit more fictional, it kind of gives freedom to really just kind of be creative with that and enjoy that. And so that's what the Lavaniverse is, right? Is like all these larger than life rock star characters that, can be over the top rock stars. I think at that time, we were really just like trying to make that real in a sense, to really just kind of like be groups of all these kind of rock stars and, musicians and people with ambitions that, could all just, bring each other up and aspire each other to, get to bigger and bigger stages. And
I think it shows just what looking back at it, it shows what like the hardest thing is about being a musician and wanting to be in a band or be a musician. You obviously have an ego. Everybody does. Man. But to get on stage and perform, it takes a certain level. And then if you're good, which we all knew we were good, and we were all striving for greatness, that ego almost made us blind to what we had in front of us. And I think that's it. Like the idea of community is so on the periphery of our vision these days because of Instagram, social media, all of these things. They are wonderful, wonderful tools if they're used correctly, right? But if we get absorbed by them, we forget about our neighbors. We forget about this kind of, there's a bigger picture here. And the irony is the bigger picture is made up of so many small things. But for everybody who's growing up, like with all of this modern technology, you get this wonderful world view of everything. And that's great, like morally and your principles are quite sound because you're aware that over in Myanmar, this atrocity is happening and you're aware of human rights in America and all of this at once. But because it's so general and so broad and so big in our eyes, you forget that, man, if you're in an aeroplane and it's going down, you have to put your own mask on before you put other people's on. And I think that makes us forget, that we do need to look after each other on a granular level as well. But I felt like there was that one particular time when we were all sat around that big dining room table, almost like Don Corleone family of gangsters. But it was us as these big characters, all with great potential to actually go out there in a tour bus together or tour buses and tour the country or something like that. Obviously, you're much more savvy than me. I'm there going, let's get a double-decker bus and deck it out so we can travel around Europe and everything. And, it's kind of like, look, man, we've got the internet. We can work it a different way. But I think, people were, a little bit too focused on maybe the egos running them rather than necessarily.
Man. And it's normal, that it's standard. And the thing is, we didn't necessarily have. We had a lot more potential, and like as you say, like there was a lot of talent in those rooms that we'd get together. But we had a lot more potentiality than we had a real kind of plan or direction, So that was definitely what I took from that, is that I really needed to go away and focus on more plan and direction and really kind of getting my head down on learning.
The other thing made me think about the cats, and I thought, man, we just replaced like herding 4 cats with herding like 24 cats. That's all it was.
And that made things hard work for sure, especially by the end of it. But I mean, as you said earlier as well, still even at this point, we were all still based in an old school mindset, you know, in terms of like, even though social media and stuff, you know, was a lot more becoming a lot more prominent at this time, we were all still going out to gigs every night. You know, we were there on the streets in London, and we were just like partying together and, you know, having some great times and doing some great stuff. You know, we, as you say, we did get this community going, and we were partying all the time and networking and getting opportunities, and you know, that was great. But yeah, without doubt, the tide had already really kind of moved towards how much focus there needs to be on the digital aspect to it. And we all had like our Facebook pages, you know. Yeah. But they were more just like an extension to us being out gigging. And
it's a business card, basically. That's all it was. Yeah. I feel like, you know, now we're talking about it, that was like a huge moment for me where I think you and I had gone to Reading, and it was just you and me, and we pilfered some festival, free tickets off of...
We got the VIP tickets,
which we'd got off the Leontas manager, Dan. And
was it
I think so, yeah. And we rocked up at like 6 a.m. and they were almost going to not let us in, and we were like, we can't sleep out here by your...
we came straight from a Panic Island gig. Panic Island was playing in Brighton.
Yeah,
and I came with you guys.
With me on that stage.
Oh, that was fantastic. Yeah, I got to sing We Start Fires with Panic Island, so I feel and we went straight from the gig to Reading Festival.
Yes.
And got there in the middle of the night.
Yeah. And I think that's probably where you and I, like, I mean, we'd already had so many chats. I think we were joking, weren't we, about you and me always like blocking the door to the toilets.
Every time we would get together.
In those doorways just chatting.
Yeah. Every time we were playing the gigs together and stuff, it was just you and me. Like, once we'd got in position. I remember one time. What was it? The alley cat or something? We just like
alley cat.
We were in the toilet basically. Like we must have bumped into each other in the toilet, and then like started a conversation there, and then just. Yeah, we're still going for hours. And people, I just remember like Vinnie going for a pee one time, and then, you know, stopping chatting for us for a bit, going out, and then like an hour or two later coming for another pee. Like, you guys are still here?
You do know we're on in 10 minutes or something.
The gig? Was that the same gig that you
swung on the chandelier,
rode the chandelier and ripped it off the ceiling? And
so
you got they pulled all the power and.
Oh yeah, he jumped the bar and basically wanted to punch me and just say like, "Look, man, like you just ruined this venue." And I'm there saying to him, "This is the last night this venue's ever going to be open." And then he said,
"It was kind of closing.
We've opened for one more week." And I was like, "You said we were the last band to ever play here, so that's why I'm trashing the place." But I think that's a really good example actually that says a lot about me and how mine. You know, this isn't a counseling session. I know there's a sofa there. I can easily just lie down. But I feel like I need to express this because I do understand just how good Panic Island was or is, you know, you listen to the songs and they stand up now. It's great stuff. Absolutely, and I feel like that's like one part of me, and I didn't see how I was going to grow anymore. I think that's it for me. And I'm never say never, you know, we could easily get back into the rehearsal room and practice those songs and be up and running again. But for me, seeing the George, the drummer go, it just made me realize that it's like, this isn't actually what I want, you know? So seeing that, us all being around that big dining room table and having the mafioso rock star.
It was a pivotal point for everyone in that room, probably.
Huge, because I mean, you look at the bands that, I think it's literally Leontas are the only bands that are still going.
Yeah.
So
I had them on the podcast. They were the last one I've recorded.
Oh wow!
Yeah. And Scott brought up about the chandelier. Unfortunately, I think not in the episode, but we were chatting. He was like, "Let's just talk about Arron riding the chandelier in the alley cat."
Yeah. So I suppose.
Sorry, go on.
No, that's cool. I suppose me holding a guitar now makes it less visceral. And do you know what's funny is, like, when I think about the gig, you know, last week, the other week at the Hope and Anchor, I felt like I was more in the zone than I have been in previous gigs. And I've been working on my mindset. You know, I've been working on my trying to perform. Like, the guitar I've got is a bit lighter, and I'm almost like trying not so much to look at the guitar, trying to work on like just feeling it and that kind of thing. Because what I really want to do is be who I am, right? And I know that I am that visceral performer, that I can project that passion. And I'm even thinking that, you know, as I do more and more gigs, I'm not going to shift over to a band that quickly. It would only be as it's necessary, because I can't be asked to herd cats to come play my songs. People don't want to play. They want to play songs they're involved in. They don't just want to turn up unless they're getting paid to be a session musician. And I feel like, you know, there will be some songs where I'm like, this is going to be so much better if I just have it on the backing track, if I'm not with a band playing it, and I'll just sing it and perform it because I know that that's appropriate for it. But what I want to do is, I felt like being in so many bands over the years that I wasn't actually developing myself as a musician or as a performer in that sense. So you're so reliant on everybody else. And having seen the bands around the table not connect in the way that I guess you and myself definitely wished they did, I feel like losing Panic Island must have gone through like 13 drummers, man. And it's that is soul destroying, particularly when you know you've got something that's got so much potential.
Yeah, and it's just constantly kind of getting held up by these things. Yeah,
exactly.
It really like takes the energy and the momentum out of it.
Yeah, and when you ask yourself, why is this getting held up? Is this me? And then I realized, yeah, a bit of this is me. Look at Vinnie, for example. You know, like, he's so. We've said it loads, so I don't want to blow more sugar up his butt, but literally, he is such a great guitarist, and he's doing something or things that really, really suit him, you know. And I'm not saying Panic Island didn't suit him, but there's no way I could do Panic Island and do what I'm doing and, you know, have a solid relationship with my wife, which is so important to me. You know, I've met my soulmate and we work on this stuff together. The videos that we create are, you know, if we ever argue, it's over if it's over the creative side of things, you know.
Yeah, and that's just creating, really, isn't it?
Yeah, but she supports me in, like, emotionally, and, you know, even though not all of the songs are her cup of tea, she still hears the Panic Island stuff and goes, "Ooh, man, there's that rock star kind of thing." And I just think, hey, do you know what? I'm on this journey again of regrowing and evolving. And like I said, the gig the other week, like, that was almost a little taste of, you know, maybe the rock stars, you know, like, just through an energy thing, you know, and a performance thing, because I know I can, you know, be sensitive, and the songs I write are from that grounding. But I can write songs, man, and I just want to write more and more songs. I don't ever want to stop. I'd love it if, you know, one day people look back and go, crap, look at that guy. Like, he's prolific, you know. That would be great to me.
And something that we've both spoken about before, I remember as well, because you and I both experienced a lot of frustration with sitting on music, and perhaps in part perfectionism, but also just getting slowed down by all these other obstacles. And I remember having a good conversation with you years ago about that goal of being prolific, and how it was something that both of us actually really would like to achieve. Prolific as in, you know, to write a lot of music and to have a lot of songs, you know, on our belt, and obviously that was not really aligned with what we were actually doing, which is playing the same songs in, you know, in at gigs and in the kind of same sort of venues and stuff again and again. So I think that that time, and especially as you say, like that kind of pivotal moment where everybody really got together and tried to have almost like a serious meeting about like, all right, what are we actually going to do then together? We have all these heads that can produce something.
So much
what's
potential.
It gonna be?
Yeah.
And it didn't, as you say, it didn't click. It ended up being too many egos there that just like, there was not a clear enough focus. And I think that, that probably, I can't really necessarily speak for everybody there, but I think definitely for you and I, you can tell that that made us reflect within ourselves and take responsibility for our part of it, and think like, well, what am I doing here? You know, what do I actually really want? And maybe like what I think that I'm trying to go for is not really quite what it is. And I think that we definitely got set on our own trajectories from that point of
totally
refinding ourselves like creatively, but like in life in general, just really reconsidering everything. I mean, prior to that, it had really been all about, for both of us, you know, in these trajectories, like we're going to make it with our bands. You know, we're going to like slam it and slam it and slam it.
Yeah.
And we're going to become, you know, big
like
rock
the
stars
amount
with
of
our bands, you know?
The amount of sacrifice that you make to try and
you and I had that both. We sacrificed everything, really.
Exactly.
We were all in on our bands, and it meant everything to us, and our whole lives were geared around that.
Yeah.
Like without a shadow of a doubt. And from that point on, we both were synchronized in this way of rethinking that whole thing, and as well, like as other things start to come in, especially for you, the big one was your relationship with Polina, of course.
Yeah.
And obviously for me as well, later my relationship with Maria came a bit afterwards. That really just gives you a bit more perspective on life, like, and starts to really make you think of the bigger picture and what do you really want to do? And I
was looking back at some of the things sorry to cut you off and just say, I remember like looking back at some of the things that I had, I'm going to say ditched, because that's all there is to it, you know. And there are some things that I am like mortally ashamed about that I should have done differently, you know, and I just didn't, because I was in this band thing, and I love bands, you know, but I love bands that, you know, have like, you know, most bands have a kind of like meteoric rise and then it fades out, or it crashes and burns or something like that, you know. That's what I would imagine for the majority of bands, and that's like whatever their rise is, you know. But the ones that kind of seem to handle it better aren't just like, you know, able to consume more alcohol and not punch each other's lights out or whatever. It's more about they have like an ingrained respect with each other. It is like, you know, look at Metallica having to go through that whole process, you know, of counseling together and stuff like that. You just think, good on you guys, because I know what that's like to think like, if I think about it, how many brothers and, you know, the occasional sister have I lost through doing music? Because you think like all these different chops and changes, it's like, yeah, man, it's growth, it's evolution, it's fine, and it is okay. But I just think it's painful. And when I met Polina is such a beautiful, creative soul, got such a wonderful spirit. And we connected in this way that I felt like this person loves me for who I am. And she knows, you know, she doesn't just know the guy who gets on stage in tight trousers and posing and screaming and looking cool and sweaty and all that kind of stuff. She knows the moany, whingy me who's like, you know, literally in tears because I'm frustrated with something, you know. And I feel like that is something that I realized that I could so easily lose if I carried on with what Panic Island was about. And I don't, I'm the frontman of that band, right? So I'm like part of that. And she's not a Yoko Ono. She would have been happy. And I say that's horrible as well, isn't it? But it's like she would have been
Panic
happy
Island, right?
with Panic Island. Yeah, she loved the vibe and the connection that people had. But I think I wouldn't have grown, and I needed to grow in order to be her soulmate properly, and I had to go through my crap. And as I was doing that, I just realized I feel like along the way, like I've let myself and others down a bit, and I say a bit, I always downplay it. I've let some people down a lot. And for me, one of the biggest people I let down was myself, because I wasn't doing more for myself within this music. I got like ability here and I've got ability here, and I deserve to, I owe it to myself to explore that. And I deserve to find out what I'm made of. Right. And for me, that is so important. And I just felt, Panic Island was an amazing time, and never say never, but it wasn't able to evolve as fastly, as quickly as I think maybe it should have. And that's why too many people dropped off. And I hope, oh, it's the neighbor singing. I thought Polina was singing. I was like, what's she singing? We Start Fires? But no, it's the neighbor. But I felt like it wasn't, evolving enough. And that's what I feel like now I need to find the balance, right? Because now I'm like, I want to evolve, like constantly. And it's like, dude, calm down, man. Like you can breathe. This album's coming out. So for a period of time, I'm going to be playing the songs of the album, right?
Sure.
So come the 19th of August, when the album is out and available, I'm not just going to stop playing the songs and start playing like some of the songs.
You have to have some sense of discipline with that. Yeah. That's the creative, isn't it? We always want to get on to onto the next thing, jump the gun.
Yeah, it's like I'm never going to be happy because I'm, and I'm okay with that. It's not like I'm not going to be content with other things in my life, but I'm never going to be happy with what I did last, because I'm hungry for the next thing.
Yeah,
exactly. And that's amazing,
that's how
to
it
acknowledge
should be, really.
that and work with that. Yeah.
Yeah, you just got to keep going. And I think that, obviously Polina has definitely been such a positive influence for you, because Polina as an artist herself is really kind of, quite special in that way. Like she's just very freely creative. She's constantly creating without being in her head too much, which is an issue that, I mean, both you and I certainly had a lot with these frustrating experiences and feeling like our creativity was just kind of, getting stifled in all of the logistics of everything. And there you have Polina as somebody who will just paint a picture, like follow what how where the brush goes, and then just do another one. And therefore it's such a kind of perfect influence for you to have gained.
And she's so emotive as well, so we kind of we really get each other in that sense. And she, if you look at the artworks of the tracks and the album and everything, like she will just say to me, okay, tell me what this song is about to you. And I do, and she's like, okay, and I just let her do her thing. She might come with that, and then exactly
what comes
she
out,
might come with like a couple of ideas. I remember Pearls had like a variety of things, and then it's like that single cover was just like, no, it's got to be that one, because it's grainy, it's dirty, it's like a champagne glass but with blood in it, and it's like, whoa. Whereas there was one where there was like a stack of champagne glasses, and it's like there was like a pearl on it and stuff, and it said Pearls, and I was like, that's a bit in your face. But she just creates and delivers every time. Like every time for me, she just understands. Like I think she referred to it as like she likes solving puzzles with visuals, and I'm like, that's nice. Amazing. So the thing we probably argue about the most when we're creating music videos always cool with artwork. Like, always think it's, you know, whatever she does, I'm like, that's perfect. But with videos, I know that I'm a bit of a stickler for the message, you know, so I'm like, oh, I want it to do this, it's got to do that. And I'll kind of like try and crowbar it in there somehow. And she's like, this looks cool, man, just leave it like that. And I'm like, I want it to say something, even if it's subtle, you know?
Yeah.
So
for there to be the narrative to it all.
Exactly. And I'm predominantly the one who's going to sit and edit as well anyway. So I kind of feel like that was always a strong point of mine when it came to film, was like understanding a narrative of sorts, you know, like, you know, favorite movies, Pulp Fiction, and that narrative's all over the shop, you know, but it's like I understand it in that way. So when I look at music, I look at it in that way. I'm kind of, I've got this message and I'm like sculpting something around it, you know, and I guess that's pretty much where I come from. The idea of the album, print on demand, is like, we're living in this world where that is like a thing now, you know, and it's like, hey, you want it, you take it, you want it, you make it happen, you know. And it also feeds back into my frustration with like consumerism and consumption, you know, how we're consuming the planet like so much. But I still want it to be like an electro pop rock record, you know. I don't want it to be,
it's good fun as well. Yeah, your music is
it. Yeah.
You know, good music to listen to. It's accessible and
I want it to be light, you know.
Yeah,
you know, you got something like Pearls,
then, you know,
which is heavy, but I want it to be bopping.
Sorry, that's it. I just think that's a real strength of quality to your music. I think I feel as if anybody can listen to it and enjoy it, and it can be light. And
Thanks,
if you are willing to kind of give it a little bit more investment, then there's actually quite a lot of depth there for you to explore. Well,
there's little Easter eggs here and there within messages, and I'm always so open to talk about it anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I would say that that's what it is like, I would really recommend anybody to listen to your music, but
thank you.
But also if they're willing to give it the time and they like it, then certainly to hear what you say about these songs. I mean, if somebody's listened to this now, they'll realize that you know, you've got quite a lot to say, and you've got quite a lot of message in your work. It's important to you. And man, I know personally every single song that you've got, you know, we could probably do an entire podcast episode on, because you know, there's just a lot of thought to it, and a lot of feeling that you have around the subjects surrounding them. And you know,
depth means a lot to me. Do you know what I mean? Depth means so much, because I think that's like value. You know, it is like what I mentioned earlier about, there's a superficiality, if that's a word, right? There's a superficial thing that is great. You know, it's excellent. Sometimes people just want to forget, and they just want to, you know, let loose. In Freedom High, we had a song called Hot Women. Right,
brilliant. Nice.
And it was a bit about sorry, it was almost like it was trying to be, I've forgotten the song, it was almost trying to be like a honky tonk woman from the Stones and a bit Girls on Film for Duran Duran. You know, it had that kind of, those were the messages. And I don't know, somebody referred to our music in a review as hoary rock and roll. And now hoary doesn't mean like prostitution or anything like that. It means like old and lagging. I think that's what it means. And we were all like, oh, that's nasty, man. And you go, oh, okay. And I don't know, like, I've done plenty of those songs. Do you know what I mean? I've done plenty of those songs. I almost feel maybe part of it's because meeting, you know, Polina and feeling so connected, that I feel like I'm not that far off having a family of my own. And if there's one thing I feel like is so important, it is having a message that, you know, is like, it's not about being, you know, anyone's knight in shining armor. It's about having a good moral compass. And I know what it was like growing up at school, feeling like I was being bullied. You know, I know what it was like. I can connect in this sense where it's like, I want to be me, and I want to be able to be me and be happy with me. And I think that's like a massive message. So probably doing Arron Sands as like a solo project and deciding that, hey man, I'm going to be truly me.
Mm-hmm.
That's like liberating. Do you know what I mean? So in that same vein, I understand like people need to be, I feel like I've waffled a bit, as you say.
I do. I love that, man.
The album has a fair few songs in there that have that deeper meaning or want to maybe like instigate conversations or something like that. I mean, maybe just between me and you, but anybody who wants to hear it.
As you say, I mean, that's the creative process,
they can.
A lot of your songs, they have come from this introspection, right? And you've kind of got on a thought process around a subject, and you kind of follow that trail of thought. And I mean, you do that excellently in your blogs as well, which
thanks.
You know, I mean, that's again just part of your sort of storytelling. People can check out your blog, and you'll see how you'll kind of take a subject. And what I find really cool about your blogs is they do really offer this kind of almost transparent insight into your thought process.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you kind of take a starting point and a subject, and we just kind of like follow your thought process.
That's all it is, really. And
it's really cool. And in a way, I would say that your songs kind of reflect that to an extent, at least some of them, where they are kind of that same thing, like your brain occupying this space, but then just turned into art, right? Turned into music. And you've got some beautiful songs like that. And as you say, it's not necessarily about the politics or anything. It doesn't have to be anything divisive about it necessarily. It's more, a song is obviously representative of really just a feeling and a place that it's come from, and people could maybe attach different meanings to it and whatever kind of works for them. But
I like how you highlighted that it's like, it's almost like I have to go through this process for myself, because I've been reading this Artist's Way, a book by Julia Cameron, and basically I feel like the Arron Sands, I don't even want to call it a project, because it isn't, because I hate that kind of term, project. Obviously it is, but what I feel like I've been doing is almost like regrowing myself, right? Because people's expectations of me under Freedom High, Call Me Animal, Panic Island, every single one of those almost showed a slightly different angle. It's got a different facet of me, because there was elements of me within it. And I feel like I obviously can't do, like I said before, I can't, when you shift into a new band, the old fans are kind of stuck in that you've left them in that time, unfortunately. There's an
attachment.
Exactly. And so with Panic Island, for example, like that has its own attachment. I have close friends who were like into that band and enjoyed what we did and what we did and what was going on there. But Arron Sands is not that. And yet I say that, I feel like having gone through this album and going back and working with Tipler again, Paul Tipler, I feel like that was a magic moment when I first worked with him and when we met. And it was like, I wanted to go back there and do that again. And I really, really respect the guy and how, he's unbelievably talented. And yet he also seems to like really respect me and what I've done, because I would bring him like a demo that has music written, so he's not, we're just sat there and we're re-recording parts with good quality equipment and good sounding, soundproofing. And then he would bring his producer hat and find sounds that just really work cohesively within the track. And then all of the tracks together for an album. And I feel like, make sure I come back onto my point so I don't just waffle. Like, I do really respect him though as a professional. He's really, really good. But I feel like having gone through this process, sat with him and watched him mix and master and see, learn more about his process and be a part of that, and also not interfere. Like with Polina, let Polina do the art. With the video, it's different because my message is in there. With Paul, we've maybe argued twice in the whole process of the album, which has stretched over like 2 years or 2.5 years, right? Basically, we've argued twice about things, and one, he was right, and one, I was right. The one he was right on was because it's like, dude, nobody's going to care about that. Only you care about that because you've got into your head about this. And that was early on. So after that, I was there going, man, you got to give some shit up. You can't control everything. And then the one where I think I was right was I was saying, I really, really want this particular bit to be there because he said it's changing too much. And I said, it's about that. Yeah. And he's like, okay. And I think he thought, shit, this kid's deep. Do you know what I mean? I think he thought, shit, this guy, yeah, okay, I need to trust his fire. He trusts my fire, I trust his fire. And so that was a great relationship. And like I say, I've gone through that. And even though we'd recorded together, even though I've done all these other bands, even though I've done all of this stuff, it's almost like I wasn't fully present. And I'm not trying to get hippie or like meditation or anything like that, but I just wasn't fully present. And for me to bear witness to this and realize that, now I feel like with, not just with the artist way, but I mention that I'm just mentioning that because it's like anybody who goes through therapy, anybody who gives up alcohol or drugs, right? As they start doing it and they realize that they can see the light, they haven't quite realized that it's still going to be tough. It's still going to be a chore, but they're suddenly getting all the dopamine from it or the serotonin or whatever chemical it is that's giving them the buzz. They just brag about it, right? And that's where I'm at. So I'm like, yeah, man, I kind of feel like, oh, I'm growing, man. I'm growing. Nice. And where
that's a good place to be.
It is. It's fun for me. It's a bit annoying for friends and family that you keep like, but read this book. Anyway, I feel like the good thing is I can go there and then I can come back. And there are some songs that I'm working on that I think, ooh, shit, this is touching upon Mr. Rockstar Sands, that wannabe, ooh. And yet it hasn't lost the, they're not losing the message that I'm so keen to have. And like with most artists, right? One of my favorite artists, Peter Gabriel, he was in Genesis, right? And doing that and then doing his own stuff. If you hear like the evolution of it and like album number 5 with Sledgehammer and mine's gone blank, sorry. But So, the album So, like that is so, I think, immaculate. And
that's an incredible album. Probably one of the best albums of the 80s. I mean,
exactly.
But you're right.
But for him to get
a great
there,
example of such an evolution. I mean, I'm a huge Genesis fan, even like all the early Genesis from Peter Gabriel. But as you say, I'll listen to it with almost a completely different hat. Like I'm either in the mood for like early Genesis and some, prog, or it's like, I'm listening to Peter Gabriel in the mid 80s or whatever, and it's a completely different thing. But yeah, absolutely fantastic. He's certainly a great example of a artist who has evolved like continuously.
I've got a friend of mine, and she says she said she posted something and shared it, and she said Arron Sands with another cracking tune. Thank you, Shirley. Thank you very much. She basically said, this guy's a chameleon. And I think that was something that I'm a bit intimidated by, that maybe I can try my hat at all these things. And then it's like, you've got so much choice, right? And it can be a bit overwhelming. But I'm actually really glad that this album is done and it's there and it exists. Because what's amazing about that is I validate myself by doing that and putting that out there as a creative, as a being, as somebody who claims to be a musician. I've produced this body of work that I'm incredibly proud of. And like we said earlier, never going to be happy, looking to do the next, already got this on because there's some tracks I'm working on. And you know, it's all teeny tiny bubbles at the moment. But I'm really, really excited about my like growth in this, because I just know that I'm going to have so much fun creating, and it's going to be so interesting to see. You know, I was writing a new song the other day and it's so punky, and I was like, oh man, ooh, okay, so I could like put together some punk tracks, and it's like, hang on. You haven't
and the thing is, you have that flexibility as a solo artist, right?
Exactly.
And I just think that that's what this is all about, is like, you're really free now. You know, to just be creative and to be authentically yourself, you know, even if it's like a chameleon, you know, it's not necessarily about you being lots of different things or lots of different people. I mean, it's just you showing all of these different sides of yourself and really celebrating that and feeling free to express that. And I think that's a wonderful thing. And I think that the album that you've made is a great representation. And I mean, there's so many stories there. And I mean, obviously, I'm really glad to have been a part of this journey and share some of this, you know, time with you.
I'm so grateful for all the support. Like, you know, it's funny, you know, recording this on the podcast now and actually seeing the record button and saying it. I don't want to be corny, but without your guidance and your help and support, and it just one thing that I think I've said it in like social media posts recently, like last month. Basically, I'm someone who needs nurturing. I realize that, and I have to nurture myself. But with the people around me to press me and push me harder or faster than what I need to, I feel like I close up, or I don't actually explore enough for me to be satisfied. I might come back around and say, yeah, you were right. But what I love is, like, you know, yourself and Maria, like, just the support you've put there and the way you've nurtured me as an artist on Love Anarchy Records. Like, I'm so grateful because you've given me this opportunity to work for something, and something that's not just for me. I'm not just in my bedroom doing it, you know, there's a meaning to it. So like I said, meaning means a lot to me. Thank you.
Thank you, man. It's an absolute pleasure. I mean, really, it's your creation and it's your work with Polina, of course. And
that freedom you give us to just create what we want is amazing.
Well, I just like to be able to offer, you know, whatever we can to support, and it's really just a pleasure. I'm really like proud, just as a friend and such, and a colleague, that you have got to this stage, and you know, finally kind of got this full album together. And even after all of that and all these amazing experiences and things you've done, this is really the first full-length album, you know, and for an artist, right, that's a big thing, man.
That's what seems so crazy, because you think,
it's
like I said before,
almost,
Panic Island, we could have worked with Tipler and put that together as an album, and now to me, they're great, they're really great listens, but it feels like a bit disjointed. So this is like a huge achievement, and it's definitely been something that I've wanted to do since Freedom High. And I'm there going, how on earth have I not done this? Well, excuse me, little celebratory burp there. How have I not been able to do this with all of the resources and the time and everything before? But I don't know, life is, you know, without this, like making the demos, you know, spending so much time on it, like to get the demos just right so that we can go in the studio and actually do the songs in a day. A couple of them took a little bit longer, whether that's because I screwed up the buses behind on the production, because sometimes I just open a track and I don't delete any of the behind the scenes stuff. And Tipler, He was grey before, so he hasn't like gone grey through working with me. But I've definitely stressed him out a couple of times, and we had like a couple of day sessions where we had to come in again because maybe the vocal wasn't quite right. And that's something else. Like, I feel like this is exactly what I wanted to do. Budget constraints, but also part of where I was at. Things are. It's funny how I can look back and say, well, 2 years ago, even though it's taken like a couple of years to put the album together and record the songs every couple of months, that kind of thing, I feel like 2 years ago, I was way more simple as like a musician.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Man,
so
it was a big evolution.
songs,
I mean, I followed you on that journey. Like when we met, I was really in awe of you in a way. Like we were both frontmen of bands.
Likewise, dude.
And I was a kid practically still then. You know, I was definitely quite young, and you had a lot more experience behind you, and so I really admired your frontmanship. And yeah, you were a badass. Like in terms of like a kind of rock
I'm still
performer.
a badass, man.
Yeah, it's in you. I know. But there was definitely a real shift there where you had this whole period with obviously Polina as well. Like she was in London, she went to university there, and that's when you met, but she returned to Russia where she's from. And so there was this whole like long distance relationship that you were in, and all this time whilst you're kind of going over like really reevaluating life and trying to work out where your priorities are. And then that was at that same time creatively you're just refining yourself, stripping everything back. You know, you had this bravado as a frontman that really just kind of you had to just discard and really
you start to believe
strip yourself back.
You start to believe it, you know, and
that just goes into the ego
because I think it got too. I think it was on the verge. I didn't want to bring that into this relationship. You know, I felt like shit. There's much more to me, and even with the songs, you know, like if I'm writing a song, I probably write a lot more kind of not balladic songs, but definitely. I don't know. I don't know what to call them. I know what Vinnie would call them, but I basically just think like, you know, if I'm writing these songs and they're not going anywhere, that's just another thing that kind of wears you down, you know? And I just thought to myself, something has to change, especially if I'm like committing to Polina, because I don't want to ruin her life. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is a wonderful soul who I want to be her soulmate and her partner for life, you know? And I don't know, there's something
it's a shift from being there's a, you know, danger to being a young man that's, you know, that kind of lives on the edge like that and isn't out every night drinking and all of these things, you know? And I think
there was a point where I spent a month sleeping in the rehearsal room because I didn't have anywhere to live.
I was sleeping in a studio as well, like at one point. Yeah. I mean, that's it. And that's whatever. Great for what it is. We've got a lot of memories and stories to tell from that. But there's certainly a shift when you start to reconsider things, especially when you have other people that like you really care about and that, you know, you then become, you know, you have a responsibility to. And so, I mean, I was, you know, close to you through all of that journey. And you really humbled yourself dramatically in a way. I would say that it really was about stripping it back and just, I mean, just at first, just being you and a guitar, and really singing emotional songs, and as well, like it was obviously a really big influence with that movement that you were going through, but also the relationship with Polina and her actually being like pretty far away.
Oh yeah, there's a song called Closer that's about that. Yeah, not wanting to just look at each other through digital screens. Basically, it's painful.
It was a huge thing. I almost like felt a bit of that pain just as being close to you. You know. And that was a real strain, and it made you really work for it. Like you guys have worked for this life that you have now. You know, by going through all of those sort of trials and tribulations. And I just think that I just wanted to bring that up because that's certainly a big part of the album as well. Like the album
It's a
really
huge
reflects
part,
that whole journey.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I would say there's almost like, you know, or at least a good bunch of those tracks are really expressing that development and that,
Yeah.
you know, relationship.
Totally inspired. I mean, obviously Lioness is such a, so, I mean, I mentioned that song Hot Women that, you know, Freedom High did. I guess this is my Hot Women now, you know, but Lioness, it's like, you know, it's about her, but it's, you know, it's also about powerful women and how inspiring that can be, you know, and just think, man, mesmerizing, you know,
slightly more mature Hot Women.
Exactly.
Arron has got a little bit more mature, at least.
I think they call a mature hot woman a cougar, right? So
there you go. It works perfectly. So, yeah, I mean, look, we've been going for quite a while. I mean, we always say, you know, you and I could talk forever.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to touch base on before we tie this up?
To be honest, I'm literally like, album 19th of
course, and rightly so, man. If somebody's got this far, then they realize this is a long overdue album, man. Like this is a big thing for Arron, and man, it's an absolute pleasure to be a part of it. Just to you know, put it out on Love Anarchy, and you know, it just feels great from you know, this journey, and we've always just been you know, looking to support one another, and so. It's such a pleasure, and yeah. So our album's out August 19th via Love Anarchy, and you can pre-order it now. You can get it on loveanarchyrecords.com. In terms of Arron, arronsands.com, right?
arronsands.com.
You've got your blog there. You've got
there's a blog.
You know,
there's you can sign up and get you know, discover, and I'm going to send you free songs. And
but not only that, I would really
about the story.
I'd really recommend the signing up for the mailing list, because as we say, like, you really kind of tell the stories behind the songs there, and if people sign up that way, then they really kind of get a proper insight into those songs, and that's really a wonderful thing. So
that's if you guys aren't bored of me by now.
No, go there, visit arronsands.com and find everything, and as well, you know, there'll be links to socials, Facebook, Instagram, you know, TikTok, YouTube, all of these places. I'm sure, what is it, at Arron Sands, right? Something along those lines.
Yeah.
So do it. Follow, give Arron a follow. He's doing great stuff, and he's got a big album coming out that he's been working super hard for. So
I do hope plenty of people made it this far.
Oh yeah, me too. You know, I could happily talk to you all day, and I'm sure there's plenty of other things that we could talk about too. So no doubt, man, like we'll have to do this again
next
sometime. But you know, in the meantime, got an album to focus on, man, and I wish you all the best with it, dude.
Thank you.
Cool.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Creating a Universe. A big thank you to Arron for joining me. It's always such a pleasure to have our talks. Be sure to follow him on social media at Arron Sands, and visit arronsands.com to see everything that he's got going on. Arron's debut album, Print on Demand, is out August 19th via Love Anarchy Records, and is available to pre-order now at loveanarchyrecords.com. It's a fantastic record, and I'm so happy to be able to assist in bringing it to the world. That's all for now, and so until next time, take care. I'll see you on the next episode.